The sky above Krylonus 9 was dark and full of icy clouds. Cold winds blew across the surface of the planet as the human ship landed slowly. The crew had trained for many missions, but none like this. They were the first humans to visit this strange planet. Captain Laura Bennett stood at the front of the group. She looked around carefully as the ship door opened. Behind her were Jake Carter, the ship's engineer, and Olivia Brooks, a skilled linguist, who spoke many alien languages. All of them wore thick suits to fight the cold. As soon as they stepped onto the snowy ground, tall alien guards surrounded them. Their armor shined like silver, and they held strange weapons. But they did not attack. Instead, one guard spoke in a deep voice. Olivia listened closely and answered with a few careful words. The alien nodded and pointed toward a large, dark tower in the distance. The humans were taken through the frozen city. The buildings were made of black stone, and blue lights glowed inside the windows. People watched them from the shadows, silent and still. No one smiled, no one spoke. It felt like the whole city was holding its breath. At the top of the tower, they entered a wide hall. There, on a raised seat, sat the Queen of the Threne. Her name was Varela. She wore a long robe that shimmered like ice. Her skin was pale blue and her eyes were bright silver. She did not smile, but she did not look angry either. Laura stepped forward and bowed her head slightly. Livia translated their greeting. The Queen listened but said only a few quiet words. Livia nodded. The Queen had agreed to allow them to explore parts of the planet, but they were not allowed to go near the northern ruins. Jake whispered to Laura, asking why the ruins were so important. Laura said they would find out later. For now, they had to follow the rules. The team spent the next 2 days studying the planet. They collected samples, took pictures, and recorded the strange lights in the sky. Olivia tried to learn more about the Thorian language and history, but the people did not talk much, seemed afraid or perhaps just tired. On the third day, Jake found something strange. A small crack in the ice led to an old path, half buried in snow. It pointed north. He followed it for a while, not going far. He just wanted to see what was hidden there. But he slipped on a rock and hit his leg hard. Blood soaked through his suit. He called for help, and Laura and Olivia came running. As they helped him up, they heard footsteps. The Queen herself was walking toward them. Varela stopped when she saw the blood. Her eyes grew wide. She did not move. She did not speak. She just stared. The guards behind her looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Laura was confused. Why was the Queen so shocked? It was just an injury. But Varela's face had changed. She looked like someone who had seen a ghost. Then she whispered a single word. Olivia did not understand it at first. It was an old word, maybe from a forgotten language. But she guessed its meaning. The Queen had called Jake the living flame. Varela ordered her guards to help Jake. She said he must be taken to the palace. No one argued. The guards lifted him gently and carried him inside. Back at the ship, Olivia searched through the alien texts she had copied. She found an old story about beings with red blood. They had once helped the Tharian in a great war long ago. But then they disappeared. She looked at Jake, now resting in a warm bed. He was just an engineer. Just a man from Earth. But something about him had made the Queen freeze in place. Something about his blood had unlocked a memory deep inside her. Laura sat beside the bed and watched him sleep. She knew this mission had just changed. Whatever the Queen had seen, it was not simple. They were not just guests on this planet anymore. They were part of something much older and much more dangerous. Outside, the cold wind blew again, and the sky turned darker. But inside the palace, a new light had been lit, one that would not go out easily. Jake lay on the soft bed inside the palace chamber. The walls were smooth and glowing with a blue light. Strange machines hummed quietly around him. Olivia sat beside him, watching carefully. His leg had been cleaned and wrapped. Pain was still there, but he was awake now. Queen Varela entered the room without a sound. The guard stepped back. She walked slowly toward Jake and stopped at the edge of the bed. Her silver eyes stayed on his face. She did not speak for a long time. Jake tried to sit up, but Laura placed a hand on his shoulder and told him to rest. Olivia looked at the Queen and waited. Finally, Varela spoke. Her voice was low. She said Jake's blood had awakened a memory she thought was lost. Long ago, the Tharine had fought a great enemy, a race called the Drekkari. They were strong, cruel, and full of hate. During that war, a group of beings had come to help the Tharine. They were not from Krylonis 9. They had red blood and strong hearts. They fought with great courage and skill. They helped win the war. But after the war ended, they were betrayed by other species who feared their power. Their names were erased from history. Their blood was never seen again. Olivia asked what these beings were called. The queen said no one remembered their true name. Only the legend of the living flame remained. A story about a protector with red blood who would return when darkness rose again. Jake listened quietly. He did not feel like a hero. He was just an engineer. He'd fix things. He had never fought in a battle. Varela said his injury had changed everything. She had seen the color of his blood. She had felt a wave of old memory come back. She believed the humans were the same as the ancient protectors, or at least a part of them. Laura was still unsure. She asked why the Tharine had hidden the ruins in the north. Varela said the ruins held dangerous secrets. Machines and knowledge left by the protectors, but also traps, warnings, and pain. Suddenly, a guard ran into the room. He spoke fast in the Tharine language. Varela's face grew serious. She said the northern ruins had been disturbed again. Someone had entered the forbidden zone. Jake tried to stand, said they had to go see. But Olivia said he needed more time to heal. Varela nodded and said she would send scouts first. Later that night, Laura and Olivia spoke in private. They both felt something big was happening. Olivia showed Laura a page from an old book. It had a picture of a red hand and fire surrounding a tall tower. It looked like the ruins they had seen on the map. Jake walked in, limping slightly, said he had remembered something strange while resting. A dream. In the dream, he stood in a burning city. He held a sword made of light. A voice called him by a name he did not know. Laura asked if he had ever seen that city before. He shook his head. Olivia said, maybe the machines in the ruins had touched his mind. Maybe something inside him was waking up. The next morning, the scouts returned. They brought a broken piece of metal with writing on it. Olivia translated it slowly, said if the flame returns, so does the war. Varela looked at Jake again. She said the Drekkari had not been fully destroyed. They had only been pushed back. And with the Protector's blood on the planet, the Drekkari might return. Laura asked what they should do. Varela said they needed to enter the ruins and find the old machines. They needed to know the truth. She warned them that others in her kingdom might not agree. Some Tharine feared the humans. Others hated the old stories. Jake said he would go. He wanted to know why his blood had caused so much fear and hope. Laura agreed. Olivia said she would help too. That night, as the wind howled outside, the three humans stood together. They were no longer just guests on Krylonis 9. They were part of its past, and maybe its future. They knew the next step was dangerous, but they also knew they had no choice. The path to the ruins was open, and their journey had only just begun. Snow fell gently as the team moved toward the northern ruins. The path was narrow and full of sharp rocks hidden beneath the ice. Jake walked slowly, still limping from his injury. Laura walked beside him, ready to help if he stumbled. Olivia followed close behind, holding a device that tracked energy signals. Queen Varela had sent 2 of her trusted guards with them. The guards said little, but they watched the area closely. They knew the ruins were dangerous, not just because of what was inside, but because of who might be watching. After a long walk, the group reached the edge of the ruins. Giant black stones rose from the ground like broken teeth. The air felt heavy. Olivia checked her device and said something was awake inside the ruins. They entered through a wide arch. The walls were covered with strange symbols. Olivia took pictures while Laura watched their backs. Jake moved slowly, touching the walls. As he placed his hand on one of the symbols, the stone under his fingers began to glow. A soft hum filled the air, then the ground shook a little. One of the guards stepped forward, but Varela raised her hand to stop him. She had arrived quietly while they were exploring. Varela said the ruins were responding to Jake's presence. She asked him to walk deeper into the chamber. He followed a hallway that opened into a round room. In the center stood a large machine covered in dust and ice. It looked like a tall chair with wires leading into the walls. Jake looked at the machine. Something in his mind told him he had seen it before. He sat down carefully. The machine lit up. Its lights ran along the wires. A soft voice spoke in a language none of them knew. Then Jake's eyes closed, did not move. Olivia shouted his name, but Varela told her to wait. She said the machine was reading his mind. It was showing him the past. Inside his mind, Jake saw a city on fire. Alien ships flew above, dropping bombs. People ran through the streets. Then a group of humans appeared. They carried bright weapons and fought the enemy. One of the humans had the same face as Jake. The memory ended. Jake opened his eyes and gasped. He said the machine had shown him the war. I had seen himself fighting with the Tharine long ago, but it was not really him. It was someone from the past who looked like him. Olivia said it might mean his DNA carried old memories. Maybe the protectors had left something behind in the human bloodline. Maybe Jake was the key. Varela looked serious. She said the Dreckery would return if the beacon was lit. She asked Jake if he saw the beacon. He nodded and said it was in the deepest part of the ruins. As they prepared to go deeper, loud noises came from outside. One of the guards ran in and said the rebels were here, a group of Tharine who hated humans, and the old stories had followed them. Laura ordered everyone to fall back, but Varela refused. She said they had to reach the beacon. If they did not, the rebels might destroy it or use it for war. The group moved quickly, took a side path that led downward. The ruins became darker and colder. The walls were cracked and water dripped from above. At the bottom, they found the beacon. It stood tall, glowing faintly. Symbols ran along its surface. Jake stepped forward, his hand shaking. He touched the beacon. It lit up. A warm light spread across the room. The ground trembled. Olivia read the symbols aloud. They said the flame had returned, and the galaxy would listen once more. Suddenly, the rebels arrived. They shouted and aimed weapons. Varela stood between them and the humans. She raised her voice and called for peace. Some rebels listened, others did not. A shot was fired. The beam hit the wall near Jake. Laura returned fire. The room filled with noise and flashing lights. Jake placed both hands on the beacon. It responded by sending out a strong wave of light. Everyone froze. The rebels dropped their weapons. The light filled their minds with memories of the war. They saw the protectors, they saw the Dreckery, and they saw the truth. When the light faded, the rebels were silent. Varela looked at Jake with new respect. She said the beacon had accepted him. So outside, the sky changed. A red line ran across the clouds. Olivia said, it was a signal. The galaxy had been warned. Something was coming. Their mission was no longer about peace talks. It was about survival. And Jake was now at the center of it all. The wind howled outside the ruins as the team made their way back to the palace. The light from the beacon still glowed in the sky like a silent warning. The rebels followed quietly, their eyes lowered. They had seen the truth and could not forget it. Jake walked slowly, supported by Laura. His body was tired, but his mind was full of images. He kept thinking about the man from the past who looked like him, the protector who had once saved the Tharine. He still did not understand how he was connected. Inside the palace, Queen Varela called a meeting with her council. The hall was cold and full of whispers. Many council members were afraid. Some believed Jake was dangerous. Others believed he was their only hope. Varela stood tall and calm. She told them about the beacon and the message it had sent. The Dreckery were not just a memory. They were real, and they might return soon. The beacon was a call for help, but also a warning. A council elder spoke loudly, said the humans brought trouble, blamed Jake for waking the past. Another elder disagreed. She said the past was already coming, and Jake had only helped them see it. Laura stepped forward. She said Earth was willing to help. Humans did not want war, but they would fight if needed. Olivia explained that the old protectors were not an army. They were defenders. They stood up when others were too afraid. Varela looked at Jake and said the beacon chose him. The old machines would only work for someone with the blood of a protector. She asked Jake if he would help them again. Jake nodded slowly. He did not feel ready, but he knew he had to try. That night, the city was silent. The people waited. Some packed their things to leave. Others stood on rooftops, looking at the red light in the sky. In the morning, Olivia found more writings in the ruins. They spoke of a final machine hidden deep below the palace, a machine made to stop the Dreckery if they ever returned. But the writings warned it could only be used once. The group went to search for it. Old doors opened for Jake as he passed. The path was dark and full of dust. At the end, they found a round chamber with a silver table. On it sat a small black cube. Varela said it was the final key, the last weapon of the protectors. But it needed a living guide to use it. If used wrong, it could destroy the city. As they studied it, alarms rang through the palace. Scout ran in and said unknown ships were near the planet. They had sharp wings and dark metal. The Dreckery had returned. Panic spread. The council shouted. Some wanted to run, others wanted to fight. Varela turned to Jake. She asked what he felt. Jake looked at the cube, said he felt calm, like something inside him knew what to do. He picked up the cube. It glowed in his hand. Lights filled the room. A map of the stars appeared in the air. It showed the Dreckery fleet moving fast. Jake said they needed time to power the machine. Olivia said the cube had to connect with the palace core. Jake would need to stay inside and guide it. Laura said she would stay with him. Varela said she would lead the Tharan army outside the palace to protect the city. Everyone had their task. The machine room shook as blasts hit the outer walls. The battle had started. Ships flew over the city. The Tharian guards fought in the sky. People ran for shelter. Inside the palace, Jake placed the cube into the center of the machine. Energy shot through the walls. The lights flickered. His hands shook, but he kept going. He saw visions again. The Dreckery marching through fire. The old protectors falling one by one. Then he saw the face of the man again. The protector smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. Jake opened his eyes. The machine was ready. He gave the signal. A wave of blue light shot into the sky. It struck the enemy ships. Some fell, others turned and fled. The machine had sent a message through space. Help would come, but they had to survive until then. Rella returned, her armor burned but her eyes full of fire. She said the city still stood. The fight was not over, but they had a chance now. Jake looked at the sky. The light was fading, but hope was rising. He knew the hardest part was still to come. Smoke rose over the city as the last Dreckery ship disappeared beyond the clouds. The battle was not over, but the enemy had been pushed back for now. The streets were damaged, but the people were alive. Queen Varela stood on a tower, looking over the city. Her silver eyes were filled with worry and strength. Inside the palace, Jake sat near the machine that had saved them. His body was weak. The energy from the cube had drained him. Olivia checked his pulse and gave him water. Laura stood by the door, watching the sky for any signs of more danger. Varela entered the room quietly. She walked to Jake and sat beside him. For a moment, no one spoke. Then she said he had done more than she had hoped. He had given her people a chance. Jake said he had only followed what the machine showed him. He still did not understand why it worked for him. Varela said it was because of the blood he carried. It was not just a visitor. It was a spark from the past, something left behind by the protectors to return in their time of need. Olivia showed them a signal on her screen. Ships were coming, but they were not Dreckery. They were allies. The message from the beacon had been heard. As the new ships landed, soldiers and doctors from other planets rushed to help. The city was filled with voices from many species. It became clear that the Dreckery had attacked not only Krylonis 9 but other worlds too. The war had already started. A large meeting was called in the palace hall. Leaders from different worlds gathered. Varela stood beside Jake, Laura, and Olivia. She told them what had happened, how the beacon was activated, and how Jake had guided the old machine. Some leaders were afraid. They asked if the humans would bring more danger. Others said the humans had already proven themselves. Jake stood and spoke. He said Earth never wanted war, but they would not run from it. He said the protectors had returned, not to rule, but to stand beside those who wanted peace. There was silence, and one by one the leaders agreed. A new alliance was formed, stronger than before. It was built on trust and the memory of those who had once defended the stars. That night, the people of Krylonis 9 lit fires in the streets. They sang songs of hope. The red light in the sky had faded. In its place, a new blue light shone from the top of the palace, a sign of unity. Jake walked through the city with Olivia and Laura. Children waved at him. Some called him the living flame. He smiled, but he still felt unsure. He had not planned to become a symbol. Later, Varela invited Jake to the old garden behind the palace. The snow had melted there because of the heat from the battle. Flowers had started to grow again. She told Jake that long ago, this garden was where the protectors had once stood. She said the ground remembered them just like she did. Jake asked what would happen next. Varela said the Drekkery would return with more force, but now they were ready. She said the galaxy would fight together and that he had reminded them how. As they stood in silence, a small flame rose from the flowers. It was not fire, but light from the cube's energy. It hovered for a moment, then faded. Varela said it was a sign. Protectors were watching, and they were proud. Jake looked at the stars. He thought about the man he had seen in his visions, the one who looked like him. Maybe he was more than just an engineer. Maybe he was meant to be here. Laura and Olivia joined them in the garden. They stood side by side. The war was coming, but they were not afraid. Jake placed his hand on the ground. It was warm. He looked at Varela. She did not need to speak. Her eyes said everything. The galaxy had changed. And it had started with one wound, one spark, and one queen, who froze not out of fear, but out of memory. Hope had returned, and it would burn bright.